Kerr's Kitchen. It's really 2 programs in 1. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How can that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Well, welcome back once again. This time it's poaching and poaching fish. And if you've ever had a piece of fish which is poached and it's kind of in that sauce which is limp all around it and thin, and then you won't want to know about this program. It's not like that. This one is thick and velvety and wonderful. And actually, I created it for my daughter. And my daughter has only had one dish named after her before. This is our 3rd daughter called Kareen. And that was kangaroo tail soup. And she said, Dad, I think it's about time for something a little more elegant. You know, I'm 23 now, so that's for you, Kareen. All right, little flecks of cheese over the top. That's a little promise, and only little flecks of cheese. And then green beans soaked in a little balsamic vinegar just on the side, just to be able to pick up, you know, with fresh herbs in it and little strips of tomato. Very colorful. They look rather nice alongside. And cut back on some of the rich feeling about this dish. There's not a lot of fat in it at all, but it certainly has a feeling of it. This is browned on the top, largely because we take paprika and mix that with just a little bit of cheese and then do a number on the outside. And then brown crepes and filled with scallops and pieces of fish. And you could springboard on this one to your heart's delight. It's just a wonderful dish. Come on, I'll show you how it's done. Of course, the thing that's really so bad with poached fish, when it gets really bad, is when it's got thin milk and put the fish in there, and you've got to be on a diet or something, or dying in some way. But this is not like that, because we're going to create a fumet, or a fish stock, before it's actually clarified. And this is what it looks like. If you take a pound of fish bones and try and ask for the bones that have come from the fish that you're going to poach, that's always nice. A little fresh thyme, or it could be dried thyme. Thyme does very well if it's dried. And a couple of cloves, and about half a dozen black peppercorns, a bay leaf, and some pieces of celery. The tops of the celery, the stuff that you normally sort of chuck up, has a wonderful flavor, and of course a nice onion. Chop all that up and put this in. This I am really thrilled about. This is something brand new. You know when you're making stock and you've got a large pot on the stock, and then you have to shovel everything else around, and you've got maybe the smell of it through the house? Okay, this is something new. This is a thermos idea, and what you do is actually, it's got a 3-liter pot in here, and this is really an effective thermal container. And you simply put all of those ingredients together in here, put water on the top of that, bring it to the boil, stick it in here, put the lid on, and do you know, about half an hour to an hour later, the most incredible thing happens. You have the most beautiful stock in the fish stocks side of it, and you can then pour that directly into wherever you want to be able, whatever you want to serve. And I want to have about 4 cupfuls of stock here, and actually I want to use it all. So I just want to pour that in. There we go. And it's terrific. You don't have that smell all over the place, and it does keep it off the top of the stove. So I think it's a wonderful idea. Right. And of course everything's in the pot so that you can actually tip it out easily. No. And you could also use it for the boat if you wanted to as well. All right, that out of the way. I'm bound to kick it a little while later on. And that stock is put in there, and we just want to get that up to the boil and go to poach. Now, poaching really means that you don't boil something. Let me show you what this is, but the water needs to be hot before you start. Here is 8 ounces of ling cod. And I love ling cod. Ling cod, I hope that just by putting it on the show we don't make it popular, because it is now in quite large supply, so that means that the price is reasonable. And this is beautiful, fresh. It hasn't got that woofy smell to it. No fish should have a woofy smell to it. It should smell like the sea and be lovely and translucent looking. Cut it into pieces that you know that you would be able to pick up on the end of a piece of fork, end of a fork, all right? Or a piece of fork. And, okay, so that's on that side. Now, I've just chopped that and put that on one side. Mushrooms. Now, the mushrooms that go into it here is just a regular sized mushroom, about 8 ounces. You get about 20 mushrooms. And just take a knife through it and cut it into quarters. It's a simple looking thing. About that stage, water should be just near the boil, so you just drop those in for a moment or two. This, you know, the mushroom is such a wonderfully designed thing. Those mushrooms have got veins underneath them. They just lie like this, you see. And what they're doing now with this fish stock is they're going, it's all sort of getting up inside the mushroom. I just want that to have a moment or two to be able to just heat up. Let me show you this other thing. These are scallops. Now, you can choose either the bay scallops, which I rather like, but I thought to myself, gosh, will you be able to find bay scallops? You might not. So these are the regular scallops, and I just cut them in two. It's a bit fiddly, but if you just cut those in two, you'll find they'll just be about the right size, because the sea scallops can sometimes be big, fat, and too important. They kind of overshadow everything. All right. So we got those two there. Now, when this has had its time of just you know, saying hello to the sauce, you just bring those out and drop those down. They've heated up just enough. The big problem with cooking mushrooms in a dish like this is they go too far. You know, they become slimy. And they should be, well, perhaps slimy is not quite the right word, but they become very soft and they don't have any texture to them. I want this to have just a bit of texture to it. Just want to get this up as high as it will go. So these are hot now, and this is a clay bowl. So by putting a lid over the top, they will cook now by just the hay box principle, and that's the same way as the stock did over there. All right, now this comes to the boil, see? Right up there. And we can then just take the scallops. At this point, you see, because you don't want it to boil when it's poaching, you just pull it from the side to knock that back a bit and put all the fish in at once. So that's a pound of fish, and that little bit there. Oh, and you broil one piece, and it's just delicious. It just has that smoky touch to it. This is really good. And stir that in. Now, if you've got a lid you can look through, which I have, but of course it mists up after a while, and then it demist itself. But you might like to try this as a technique. Because you've got to keep your eye on it. So, and a piece of waxed paper like that, just lay it onto the surface, put it back onto the heat there, and just check. If you press it down tight like that, you look down onto that, and you can see where the little tiny bubbles, see it trembling? Now that's just the stage that it will be poaching. Anything more than that, it starts to boil. And that's really unfortunate. I actually call it boiling the guts out of it, as you'll probably see in just a moment. All right, good. Well, now that it takes 4 minutes of poaching, so we might as well go and have a look at some fish that you could use instead of the lingcod if you wanted to. Different kinds of fish, which would be really wonderful. Okay, over to the fishing boat. Good, well, thanks, Graham. We're here right in the middle of the Pacific fishing fleet in the Northern Pacific. Just a great area. This is a place that abounds with the freshest fish, and I wanted you to see things at their best. Look, I know you wouldn't eat a sponge, or maybe you would, I don't know, but this is about 30% collagen, and that's that material which melts out at slow and gentle heats. That's why cooking seafood at a gentle temperature is so much better than sort of boiling the guts out of it. So let's have a look at this. These are the poaching fish. You've got a yellow eye rockfish. This one here, obviously you could call it redfish, but it's called a yellow eye, obviously for its eye here. This is a nice piece of bass, and it would be a blacker skin on the outside, but it's a beautiful, wonderful poaching fish, that one. This one's called a quillback, and it's another one of the rockfish family. It's sort of golden yellowy in color. Again, well done. Great poaching for a salmon, a sockeye salmon, and a small one like this does well. As indeed here, look, see the beautiful sea scallops and then bay scallops are the tinier ones. Those are really neat. I'd use these, I think, in a dish like that. And one of the great tests of any kind of a fish department anywhere is how they actually get these two. Marvelous, they taste the sea in them, and nothing but the sea that you smell. Okay, then piece of rockfish here, red rockfish. See how that pinkish sheen comes on the outside where the skin has been removed? This is also in mid-Atlantic called striped bass, just to make things easy for you. And here is ling cod, which I really like. Ling cod's a less expensive fish, and it can be wonderful when it's perfectly fresh. And here's rainbow trout, which we're going to deal with later on in the series. But these are just great. There is one additional one, which usually comes onto the fish market slabs at Halloween for a good reason. Come and have a look at this. It really is quite something. I'm making the assumption it's a he at the moment. Do you see his incredible mouth? Look at those teeth around the outside. If we call this a TV personality fish, it's all mouth and little substance. I'm one of those. Anyway, back here, you've got this phenomenal tail. And this tail is very gelatinous. So if it's gently poached in a fish broth, it is so neat. It's really a wonderful flavored fish. Look for it, monkfish, that's on the menu. You might not like the top part, but but you'll really enjoy it. Okay, now, Graham's poaching these things, and it isn't boiling, I assume, Graham? Okay, back to you. Boiling? Never. Never, just a little poaching. Okay, this is what it looks like. You see how the little bubbles, let me show that to you again, little bubbles under the surface, and you can actually see it rolling around underneath there. That's the poaching temperature. Then just lift the paper off if you want to save it for something. You know, I don't know what you could use it for, but this is what it looks like underneath there. Then just simply take the same pot that you put those mushrooms in, which is still warm there, and take the fish out. Now, look at it as each spoonful comes out. The protein has whitened. It is now translucent. You know, it was translucent, it's now opaque, which means that the protein is coagulated, which is what the cooking is. Some nice to be bathed in a luscious stock. It's better than protein coagulating, but that's in fact what's been happening. So we put all of that together, then lit the fire under this one, just bring it really up to the heat again, put the lid on so as to be able to bring it to the heat. And there we are. Now, put those back in the warm pot, put the lid on. This is when you want to cook everything at the last moment, but you can cook it ahead of time, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so this has come back to the heat again. And here we go to the slurry. Now, this could be more of the stock, a little cold stock, mixed with 6 tablespoons full of cornstarch. It sounds a lot, but you know, when you think of the classic dish, and I actually was part of the invention team that created the classic dish, that is a flour and butter roux, and it is a delicious sauce. You know, it's a thick, creamy sauce. But I'll tell you, it takes a lot of cooking and a lot of cooking out, but this has much less calories in it, much less in fat, because there's no fat in this one at all. See how this has come to the boil now? Well, what you do is dry that off the top. I want to bake that on the board. And then remove that from the heat. And then with a whisk, just pour it in. Now, what you're going to have here is Bill Poster's glue. I mean, literally. This is the stuff, if you were going around town and a pop group were visiting, you'd go around with a pot of this stuff and then slap up the bills. But in this case, it has to be thick because it's going to hold the quality of the yogurt a little while later. Now, every time with cornstarch, please make sure that you boil it for 30 seconds because it has a raw starch taste. I'm going to get that out of the way. So that's just boiling up there. Let's put the heat on here, and this is about right. It's a little hard when you're actually trying to get a pancake batter sort of nicely done, but we'll just put this on the go. To start with, I'll tell you what I'll do. That's got about 30 seconds. Is that 30 seconds now? Fine. Okay. Thank you. Take that then and strain the whole of that into a pot, which I want to put it on this pot so as to cool it. So it's on this nice little pot here, and please cool down. Just any little spots which come from when you actually whip cornstarch into something, you can get these little tiny dumplings. So always strain it when you do that. Get that out of the way first. Okay, I just wanted to get that nice and cool. Right, get that off the pan now. Now we're back to the pancakes. Now I'm going to show you how to make the pancake batter in just a moment, but first of all I want to place just a little oil when you're making this pancake thing, about a teaspoonful of oil in the bottom of the pan first, and shake that around. And it shouldn't smoke quite as high as that, but we'll see how that goes. And then drop that oil into the pancake pan, and you can, if you like, just take a little piece of paper, just a tiny bit, and blot up some of that extra oil for the first bake. They always say that the first crepe is expendable. There we go. Onto the pan, and a little ladle full here, and we'll just pop it on the top. Just roll it on the top surface. It should just sizzle, and then roll it around the pan. Now, try and put the pan on about a number 4 heat. I've got 6 here on this heat, and I want it to actually start to go on about 4. So it's number 4 through 6. So it's just over the medium high. And keep looking at it. It should be waxy on the top surface there. And what we're trying to do with this one is to cook, of course, obviously the pancake batter through. And what I've got is a simple spatula here, which has got a curve to it, and this can go underneath and help to lift it off, rather than have to do this flipping in the sky business. Just run the spatula around the outside, and you'll start to see when the heat of that pan has actually started to have the browning effect underneath. What will happen on the surface is that it goes waxy. You can see those little waxy, little pinpoint heads starting to poke through. When that happens, then you get a dry one of those spatulas. Oh, there it is. I knew I had a wet one and a dry one. And you just tilt it back slightly, push it underneath, and flip it over, all right? It's just a straight flip over. And it's very, very light and tender. It's so light and tender, frankly, that if you try and, if there's a breeze in the house, it could miss, you know, because the breeze would blow it away from the pan. Now, if you're worried about doing all of that at the last moment, then I'm not surprised. Don't worry about it. Because what you can do here, you cook that second side and then slip them all onto a separate plate like that, and you can cover that with a cloth, and you can do that in the afternoon way ahead of everything else. All right. How to make the batter? Simply half a cup of all-purpose flour, 1 whole egg, 1 yolk of egg, and just 1 cup of 2% milk. Beat it all up together. There's no particular marvel about that one, and let it set for 20 minutes before you make the pancakes. Then you'll have a nice, delicate pancake that you'll be able to turn out just like that. No problem. All right. Now, and by the way, if you get friends in, they can make the pancakes and you can do the rest of the stuff. Here is then what we have done earlier on. This is the fish, and you'll find that it's expressed a certain amount of juice from it. Those are from the mushrooms and the fish itself. It is delicious stuff, but its color is the wrong color. So put it on one side and freeze it, and the next time you actually do a fish dish, you can slip that into the pan. Here is about as simple an assembly as you'll need to be able to do. You get a little bit of yogurt, which is strained yogurt, and I get 1 cup of strained yogurt. Then take this sauce here, and with a whisk, just pour the sauce over the top of the yogurt. Now, it shouldn't be too hot, because otherwise it'll make the yogurt break. But that's, even though it was a hot pot, that's doing okay. And then from this, you simply take this and place this on top of the seafood, like so. Pour it on top and keep back a certain amount for later, because we're going to nap the dish with it. Okay. Now take the crepe here and simply lay that on the table and on the plate, and put this lovely looking seafood mixture on the top. Fold it over, and you've got 1 of them. Now you do 2 of these each, and I want you to see how this works. So you take another spoonful of this sauce, put it over the top, like so, and then a dusting of paprika over the top of the side of that, and a little bit of cheese over that. Now, put that away in the oven under the broiler and whiz out, and here's the one that's done. Hee-ho, hee-ho. A little bit of, that's parsley, isn't it? On the top, the bean salad with the balsamic. I'm sort of hurrying because friends shouldn't be kept waiting. And there, doesn't that look nice? Ah, good. Ready? Come on. Actually, the classic dish, I go out and petty larceny with no fingerprints. The classic dish is this one here, and this is usually served in a sort of gratin dish in this way, and it's solid cheese and fat, and it's actually quite delicious. But let me show you just what actually happens to it. 1,433 calories is in the classic. We've got this down to 376. 36 of carbohydrate, 19% calories from fat, 161 in cholesterol. Look at this, 588 in cholesterol on that one. And 2,509 in sodium, down to 444. It sounds like a golfer's special. Now, I left out the fact that there's only 3 grams of fat in the whole dish. That's one of those things which you just love when it comes out on the computer. Normally you don't like computers, but computers who turn out messages like that, it's lovely. We blow the computer a kiss. Well, some of us do. Here, and the whole idea of poached fish with a limpid, nasty sauce is driven away. That's just delicious. Try it with good friends, won't you? Thank you. There's something happening now in Europe, and it's called cooking off the cuff. And before I tell you exactly what it is, I want you to do one of those sort of magical tricks. You know David Copperfield, I don't know whether you've ever seen a program of him. He's into this business where you touch the screen in different places. My wife, Trina, has produced so many of the shows. She's a sucker for that. I would never, even just with her in the room, I would never get up and touch the screen. Come on, I don't want to get drawn into. You like that? Well, anyway, she's there. She goes like this, and she stabs it. She says, he did it again. And it's always the one that she's going. Anyway, marvelous. Well, if you're on your own now, and there's nobody watching, and you don't want to get embarrassed, will you do something just for me? Will you think about your dining room table, all right, where you eat? Now think about a place setting on that table. When is the last time that you had a very good friend, I mean really very good friend of yours, sit down at that place in your table and eat with you, where you prepared a meal with them and you sat over the food and you talked to each other? When was the last time? Think about it. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It's like Jeopardy, isn't it? All right, that's given you enough time to think about it. If it was more than 6 months ago, that's a shame. It's a shame. I'm not being critical of you because I know how busy life can be. And I know that perhaps the last time you did a recipe, say something like this all on your own, you're thinking, phew, that's the last time I do that. When you're hanging off the doorknob, and you're so exhausted and you don't know what you're going to do next time you have a banana party. Hey, be casual. Let's call it casual dining. And this is what they're doing in Europe. They pick up the phone. Hello, are you there? Well, there's the French person. Hello, you there, mate? That's the English. Said, what you got in your fridge? And now they've all got cordless telephones, so they go over to their fridge and they open it up because European refrigerators are tiny, so they sort of get down and have a look in. And they say, well, I've got a chicken. And he said, oh, good, because I've got a bottle of wine, I've got some mushrooms here. Hey, bring the chicken over and we'll put it with the bottle of wine and the mushrooms and we'll try and make something up together. How does that sound? He says, great, I'll be over in just a moment. And he said, put the kids in the car too, and it's all that kind of wonderful, gosh, it's community. And so they come over and they make the meal up together. They work at it together. And I've done this 2 or 3 times, and it is absolutely sensational. This is going to sound like a commercial, but it isn't, because I really want you to do it. This book is designed for that kind of cooking. It's got all the dishes that you could actually create with just what you've got in your fridge. It just tells you how to put dishes together. So do it on the spur of the moment. Why don't you do it even tonight? Look in your fridge, ring a good friend, and say this to them. Hey, come over. We've missed you. There's nothing which feels so good in the human heart to be missed as a friend. Okay? Real soon? No, that's such a good taste in the mouth. And that's for Kareen, and it's for you. Until next time, God bless you.